In recent days, Moscow has once again felt the direct impact of the war. The Russian capital, long believed to be untouchable, is under attack again. Blackouts, sudden power drops, and entire neighborhoods in darkness reveal a reality the Kremlin tries to hide. Ukraine has found a weak spot Russia cannot defend. 30,000 residents lost electricity within minutes. The voltage across the entire city fell by nearly 10%. Footage recorded by locals shows darkened streets, distant sirens, and a rising sense of tension. Moscow is learning, in the harshest way possible, that the war is moving closer to its core. And this wasn't an accident, a malfunction, or internal sabotage. It was a direct strike, calculated, repeated, and increasingly effective, carried out by Ukraine. And this is only the first stage of a strategy Russia is struggling to stop. Since early 2024, Ukrainian drones have been striking oil refineries across the country. And these are not isolated hits. The numbers are staggering. By the end of October, 21 of Russia's 38 largest refineries had been hit at least once. This wiped out nearly 40% of the nation's total refining capacity. That loss doesn't just affect fuel availability, it disrupts military logistics, long-haul trucking, and even basic civilian transport, all of which depend heavily on steady fuel output. To understand the impact, refineries turn crude oil into everyday fuels like diesel and gasoline. And Ukraine doesn't hit a refinery and move on. It returns. It hits again. Facilities in Novokuybishevsky, Ryazan, and Saratov were struck multiple times within weeks. Russia repairs, Ukraine destroys again. The goal is simple: sustained pressure, and the effects appeared quickly. Around 60 Russian regions started facing fuel shortages. In annexed Crimea, things became so severe that authorities limited gasoline purchases to 20 liters per person. Long lines formed at gas stations. Some reports even mentioned scuffles and theft. Fuel prices also spiked. Between January and October, some regions saw increases of nearly 50%. To contain the crisis, the Russian government allowed refineries to mix kerosene with summer diesel to create winter diesel. It looked like a quick solution, but it backfired. Kerosene supplies plummeted, and the mixture burned faster and less efficiently, draining reserves even more quickly. Now Russia risks running into an aviation fuel shortage. Every attempt to fix one problem creates another. Meanwhile, refinery strikes continue to cause economic and political damage. In September, fuel exports dropped more than 23%. The strategy was working so well that by early November, Kyiv expanded its list of targets. While continuing to strike refineries, Ukraine began targeting Russia's power grid. And that marked a clear shift. Hitting the grid means pressuring not just military capability, but daily civilian life across a vast country with an aging electrical system stretched over thousands of miles. In August and September, only 10% of Ukrainian attacks hit electrical infrastructure. Between October 13th and November 5th, that number jumped to 38%. 29 grid facilities were hit in less than a month. Why this sudden focus on the power grid? Because hitting power plants directly is difficult. They are well defended, and nearly 18% of Russia's electricity comes from nuclear plants. Targeting them would be dangerously risky. Ukraine wants blackouts, not nuclear disasters. So Ukraine shifted to a weaker link: substations and high-voltage transformers. These are the components that link power plants to cities. They regulate voltage and distribute electricity across the country. Without them, power simply doesn't reach its destination. It's like having a powerful car with no road to drive on. Substations act as hubs in the network. Single points of failure where losing one node can disrupt power to entire regions simultaneously. And here's the important detail. This is the exact strategy Russia used against Ukraine throughout the war. Kyiv is following the same playbook, and repeated strikes on substations only make sense because Russia cannot repair them quickly. That's the weak spot Ukraine uncovered. One example makes this clear. In the Vladimir region sits one of the most critical substations in the area, the Vladimirskaya substation. With over 4,000 megavolt amperes of capacity, it transmits power from 3 major sources and supplies at least 750,000 people. It's vital for Greater Moscow, serving as a major interchange where multiple transmission lines converge. On October 31st, Ukrainian drones hit this substation. The impact was immediate. 30,000 people lost electricity, and Moscow saw a citywide voltage drop, and defenses were almost non-existent. Only light, sporadic anti-aircraft fire was recorded. 4 days later, in the night of November 4th to 5, the same substation was hit again. Any repairs made during the week were destroyed, and this pattern is repeating across the country. The obvious question is, why can't Russia repair these facilities quickly? The answer lies in the equipment being destroyed. High-voltage transformers are massive, complex, expensive machines. Each unit can cost millions of dollars. Production time averages between 18 and 24 months. In more complex cases, it can take up to 4 years. These are not components you replace overnight. Their enormous size also makes transportation slow and difficult, often requiring special rail routes or heavy-lift vehicles that are not always available. And the problem runs deeper. Russia's modern transformer industry is extremely limited. Most factories still operating were built between the 1950s and 1990s during the Soviet era. They can produce small transformers for residential or light industrial use, but not the huge 500 kV or 750 kV units that support the national grid. The machinery in those factories was never updated for modern standards, leaving the country dependent on foreign technology it can no longer access. For decades, Russia imported these transformers from Europe and Japan. But after sanctions imposed due to the invasion of Ukraine, that supply disappeared. Neither Europe nor Japan sells them anymore. And sanctions also block critical components needed to build or repair these devices: microelectronics, circuits, and advanced materials. A recent case highlights the issue. Power Machines Toshiba in St. Petersburg, one of Russia's most modern facilities, had to halt construction of 3 high-voltage transformers in 2024. The reason? Specialized insulation components were stuck in Turkish customs, and that happened even though Turkey maintains good relations with Moscow. If Russia struggles to import parts even from Turkey, imagine elsewhere. Today, Moscow depends almost entirely on China and Hong Kong. Around 80 to 90% of its critical electronic components come from these two regions. This creates a risky dependency. Long shipping routes, political tension, and customs delays can disrupt supply at any moment. This is why Ukraine's strategy works in 2 simultaneous strikes. While one hand targets refineries, cutting revenue and causing fuel shortages, the other hand hits the power grid, shutting down ammunition plants and heavy industry. Civilians are also affected, facing blackouts in the middle of winter. Without fuel, transport stalls. Without electricity, industry stops. Without both, sustaining the war becomes harder. And with winter approaching Eastern Europe, temperatures can drop below -10 degrees Celsius. Under these conditions, a blackout becomes more than an inconvenience. It can be life-threatening. Hospitals rely on stable electricity for heating, equipment, and emergency care, and older infrastructure becomes even more vulnerable during extreme cold. Volodymyr Zelensky emphasized this recently. According to him, Russia does not seem to understand the human cost Ukraine has endured since the war began, with thousands of civilians suffering from infrastructure strikes. And for that reason, Kyiv is responding by targeting energy facilities that finance Russia's war effort. This is not just a military strategy, it's symbolic. It sends a clear message. The war has consequences for everyone involved. Russia began this conflict targeting Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, believing winter blackouts would break the country's morale. But the opposite happened. Ukraine adapted, resisted, and is now striking back with an effectiveness Moscow did not expect. And there is an irony Ukrainians point out often. While entire cities face blackouts and substations burn, Russia's best air defense systems are concentrated around Vladimir Putin's private residence in Valdai. 7 Pantsir S-1 systems and 1 S-400 have been identified in the area. The president's home is protected. The rest of the country? Not so much. When explosions occur, regional authorities often downplay the situation, claiming the damage came from drone debris. But videos posted by local residents show substations burning and neighborhoods completely dark. The official narrative does not hold. But how does Ukraine reach such deep targets inside Russia? Two factors explain it. First, Ukraine developed domestically produced long-range drones such as the Bober, equipped with precision guidance and warheads designed to destroy infrastructure. Second, and revealed by the Financial Times, is the intelligence support provided by the United States. Ukraine chooses the targets, but the U.S. supplies crucial data, safe routes, vulnerability assessments, altitudes, and precise timing to avoid Russian air defenses. It's like handing Kiev a map of every blind spot in the Kremlin's shield, and it has made a major difference. With winter approaching, each new strike has a greater impact, and as transformers continue to be destroyed, replacement becomes nearly impossible. The question now is, how long can Russia sustain these losses before being forced to reconsider the cost of the war? Now I want your opinion. Can this Ukrainian strategy truly pressure Russia, or does Moscow still have room to push back? Leave your comment below and make sure to subscribe to the Global Defense Report to follow every new turn in this war in real time. See you in the next episode.